Welcome to another episode of Design Wake Up. In this episode, we'll talk about Elon Musk's decision to make all the workforce return to the office full time, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan following suit. Are they wrong? We'll also talk about the upcoming crisis and if we think it will affect the leadership style and if that will affect the workforce and more. So stay around and we hope you like the episode. So, as we said in the beginning, today our episode is about leadership in a world post COVID, and we have a company and the CEO that everyone knows about, has probably some strong opinions on, and we also covered Tesla in a previous episode. Before we jump into the details of the episode itself. The idea to speak about leadership in this world post COVID, and we will also speak about how does that relate with design. In a way, came from the brilliant minds of Sam. And I was wondering, Sam, do you want to share with us a little bit about the reasons that made you, in the first place, want to talk about leadership?
Absolutely. Thanks, Marco. I think I think a few weeks ago I got a little bit frustrated. I've been reading quite a lot about leadership and office design, organizational transformation, and I think I got a little bit annoyed at the way that some CEOs and leaders have been trying to get people back into the office. I feel that a lot of people were a lot more comfortable before COVID when they had all of their employees there and they could go on site to clients and all that. And I absolutely understand that. But I think we have received this opportunity from something that wasn't fun, because COVID definitely wasn't fun for anyone. But I think we've received this opportunity to create a new office. When you look at the history of offices, around the end of the 18th century, I think, was when the first office actually was created here in London. And so, offices and people being kept in an office is not an old thing. It hasn't been around for thousands of years. It's actually fairly new. So saying that it's a natural way of working is not true. And actually, I think there are a lot of people that do really value working from home and do like their own offices and working in their own time. But on the flip side, I do understand that there are people that thrive in an office environment and that need that kind of tactile connection with people, with clients. It's a lot easier to sell as well if you're in a room and you're in your suit and you've got that presence. But I think we shouldn't look at what the past had. I think we should look into the future and create something completely new. Move away from that kind of cubicle farm or open office design or whatever that we had in the past that actually didn't work very well and for different people meant different mental health issues. I think we now have an opportunity to build something completely new.
Now, that's a really strong point, and it really touches in something that hopefully we'll have the chance to speak about here, which is the future of the workplace and what that might look like, right? And the backlash you were just mentioning in terms of uh, leaders, CEOs, executives wanting people to go back to the office is something that we are seeing across the board. For example, the topic that we want to explore today, which is Elon Musk and other CEOs from companies like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Bank of America, wanting employees to go back to the office full time. Elon Musk, I think, even joked a little bit with the whole policy when he said you can work remotely as long as you work 40 hours a week from the offices, which I think it's quite provocative. And the reason that he arguments has to do with um, lack of productivity and loss of creativity, which in a way leads to loss of innovation and impacts the business from a culture perspective as well. Um, do you agree with this point of view, or do you think there's an element that is missing here? And what would perhaps be your points to argue against is their perspective?
So I'm going to take a little step back now, as I like to do, and talk a little bit about leadership principles, because I think that's that can kind of be a nice introduction into what I want to say. So I think the principles of leadership are the same as they were before COVID. So you still need leaders that are empathetic, you need ones that listen, you need integrity, you need all of those lovely things that we've usually seen. But I think there's one that was there before, but I think is even more important now, and that is trust. We need leaders that trust their employees and have their back. We need leaders that trust that their employees are grown-ups and that they can have their own work style, which actually is a term that my company is starting to use right now, which I'm very excited about. So they're moving away from the hybrid working jargon or buzzword to the work style. And, talking about work styles, I think we're all very different. We're not trying to fit one mold. I think innovation comes from diverse thinking. So diverse people from different backgrounds, people with different personalities, introverts, extroverts. You've got the 16 personality type, questionnaires and all of that kind of stuff. So I think, again, we have an opportunity now to, instead of creating an office that people have to tune themselves so that they can work there, actually we can do the opposite. We can create a workspace where everyone thrives. There are people, as I said before, that thrive in an environment where there's loads of noise, there are loads of people, all that innovation, all those workshops. But then there are other people that thrive working from home. They're a lot more, they get a lot more done in their hours because they're not badgered by people during the day. And, for instance, I don't like noise. So I go into the office and the first thing I do is put my headphones on. And that's kind of a cue for people not to come up to me and all that, which, I know that there are people that want to talk to me. And so I've made kind of a safe space and kind of I give them opportunities to come up and talk, and I go up to them and everything. But I thrive at home because I just am that kind of person that likes to work from home and have options to talk to people online or options to go into the office. I don't like working from the office 5 days a week. But then there are other people that love that need that, they don't understand how people can't want to live there. So, work there. So I think, in answer to your question, I think Elon Musk probably doesn't trust his employees is basically the answer. I think, he thinks of, he looks at a few people and sees that they're not working to their, highest standards. And he's like, everyone that works from home is just not working. They're just pretending to work. I don't think that's true. I think that as long as you set objectives and goals and people know what they're doing and, they're happy in their company, they are going to work because, everyone needs purpose, and work gives us a lot of purpose in our life. And I actually think that people can do even more at home because, we've seen the research that shows that people actually get a lot more done.
Interesting. So
What
I
are your
do it.
thoughts?
So here's what I was going to say. I do agree almost 100% with what you said. There's some caveats, in my opinion, that exist in a complete remote working or hybrid type of work. Did you call work style? Yes, I think you call it work
Works.
style. Um, and we can touch on that in a second because at the end of the day, like you said, it has to do with works best for everyone, and it's about the people, right? And we've seen that the world of business is shifting so much towards delivering value for the people. And when we talk about the people, we talk about the end user, and in this case, being the end user, the employee is the workforce, right? So I think there's an element there. Hopefully, we will explore here in in the episode. But I agree. I think it comes from a selfish position. I'll give you my point of view or my opinion as to why this is happening, and I think a lot of this has to happen. or has to do with circumstances around what's happening in Elon Musk's um, in terms of his businesses. So let's deep dive a little bit on that. So he's the CEO of SpaceX. Now there's the Twitter situation. He backtracked on his efforts to quit the deal, and everything points that he'll buy Twitter at the original price, which is approximately $54 a share, which will represent a $44 billion dollar deal. Now, on top of that is the CEO of Tesla. So a lot of things is going on in his life. We're talking about multi-billion dollar companies. It's already difficult, extremely difficult to manage, steer the ship of a multi-billion dollar company. Three, it's almost impossible. So but at the end of the day, what we need to also remember is that Tesla is the golden egg chicken um, of these three companies. Even at the evaluation they have, the Tesla is the one that brings more money in, right? And investors know this, and they also know that Elon Musk is the key piece for Tesla to continue achieving success. That's why he managed to launch the company when everyone thought he would fail. And on top of that, and just to finalize my point here, he's facing a lot of macro factors that are causing problems that need fixing. The supply chain problem with the logistics, right? We talked about this in the episodes about the ethics involving Tesla. Um, and is also totally freaking out about the upcoming crisis. He even said that this upcoming crisis will be even more impactful than the previous one of 2007, 2008. There's the war between Russia and Ukraine. We know that he likes to have a bit of tantrums, but he even went to the extent to say this will probably cause the Third World War. Hopefully not, obviously, but so and he's being pressured by shareholders. He just missed Q3 targets by 500 million, and he knows that he will probably miss the 50% growth target for the year. So what does this mean? What it means is he wants to do all of these things, and at the same time not losing control. And I think for Elon Musk, surprisingly, because we're talking about someone who created a software company that happens to sell us cars, and he wants to go back to some principles that I don't understand, which is I will only know that you are being productive if you are in the office. If I can log in your time, is that the new policy now dictates that you always need to sign in, and you will have a track of all of the sign-ons that happen in the day, and the absences. Is this really the right way to go? Is there a reason behind why he's doing this? A bit of a selfish reason, of a sense of misconception of what control is? I think that's what the problem might be, really.
It's like trying to regain control by buying toilet paper during Brexit. But actually, this morning I stumbled upon an article in The Economist titled "When Bosses Walk in Employees' Shoes." And it was very interesting because it touched upon something that you said a few moments ago around, the employees being the users, and, where we try, through like empathy and through workshops and through user interviews and whatever, we try to understand the end users when we're doing, design thinking. There is an opportunity now for employees to do something like that with for leaders to do something like that with their employees. So, we've already heard about programs like Undercover Boss and all of that kind of stuff, where bosses dress up as someone and then go undercover. I don't think we need to go that far. But I do actually think that leaders could maybe have a look at what's going on in the other ranks. I'm not going to say lower because I hate saying that, but in the other ranks, in their company. And I think you're right. I think it is that kind of micromanager mindset where they just want to see that their people are sitting there at their desk doing their stuff for 8 hours or 9 hours or 20 hours or whatever. but I'll go back to what I've said before. I think we've got an opportunity to build a completely new office world, and it's not about being all remote or all in the office or hybrid or works like. We can build it. I don't know what it's going to be called. It might be called something completely different, but I think we can really create a workplace that everyone loves, that everyone is empowered in, that everyone is trusted in, that people are respected, that people can feel comfortable and can just do their 120%. And there's already companies that are trialing different ways of seeing, by leaders, of seeing how they how their employees work. This maybe isn't the best example, but it's a real life example that I know of. So I know a person that works in Uniqlo, and what they do there, to just have a little bit of a taster for what other people do, is they have this a policy that every year at Christmas, their head office helps out in all of the stores, and everyone from the head office has to help at least one day. So instead of getting, contractors in to help out during the busy season, they actually get their employees that usually are office based to work with employees that are in the shops. And then, I think that kind of creates a better understanding of the people that, are on the shop floor. And I think that's something that, other companies could aspire to do as well, in a similar format.
That's so interesting, and more companies I think are adopting that approach. And the thing that you said about um, how do you create a better um, environment for users and the employees being also the end users, but also at the same time the style of leadership that adopts micro management type of behaviors. Uh, we can speculate as to why that happens, but ultimately it comes down to companies needing to know what a good employee looks like. And I think we still see a lot of the old way of what a leader think good looks like and following a set of procedures in order to get to that thing that he wants to get, right? So if you log in at 9 a.m. and if you log off at 6 p.m., for example, I know that you would have probably produced what I need to create value, right? Um, as we become more digital, uh, that assumption is wrong in so many ways. We now have mechanisms to track the data, which tells us whether or not a team or an individual is producing good results for the company. But first and foremost, we need to define what those are. And people sometimes, I think leaders, still see that as a um, expense rather than um, a benefit that will be produced, right? So why would I spend time developing a program? Let's call it a program, understanding what would this kind of benefits or outcomes or whatever that is looks like at a team and individual level. I'll just invest a lot of money. Will that really work? So I think it goes back to the principles, right? And um, how do you shift from uh, a procedural, stiffed type of leadership model to a value creation model that touches at very levels, not just at the individual level, but company level, team level, and so on. And that requires um, some time, some thinking, some conversations like the ones you said, just an example, with the head office going, to the stores, work with the people that work in the stores to understand how the work environment is, what they do, when the barriers, and how, what could possibly be implemented, developed in order to create um, better results, not just for the teams on site, but also for the company overall. Because if the teams on site produce better results, the company will profit, right? And I think we still miss in a lot of situations that understanding.
I absolutely agree. There's been a lot of research done, and I think I could probably go on Google Scholar right now, and anything that we say here, I can probably find papers that would confirm and then papers that would deny. So I think, there has to be a lot of research done now post COVID to see, what psychologically are the needs of the employees. I've been reading about, the lasting brain problems that people might be having, like impacts on the brain of having COVID, and there stats that are showing that people might have aged brain wise by 10 or 20 years, which is just mind boggling for me. But what how will that impact the way that people work and the needs that people have? So I think there's a lot of research that needs to be done into this situation, and there will be impacts, positive and negative, of this new office design, because we were used to the old ways and we were comfortable because we'd just grown up being used to having that kind of semi open space where our managers could come and tap us on the shoulder and have a chat with us. But I think it's about really understanding what the employees need. And there are different types of personalities, but there are also different types of jobs. So, of course, when it's Tesla and you need to build a car, you can't do that from home. But maybe the code that goes into the computer that's in the car, maybe that could be done at home. So I think it really depends on what people prefer. I had people during COVID that couldn't wait to get back into the office because, they either didn't have an office space at home, or they had children that they couldn't deal with anymore, or whatever. So I think it's about leaders listening to the needs of their employees and collecting the data, as you say. And there are ways, without it being unethical or weird or creepy, but there are ways to see, maybe OKRs. Maybe it's an opportunity for us to start, creating these objectives with key results, with interventions, with, everything, so that people have, they've got goals to reach and they have to reach them. And, we trust in our employees that they'll reach those goals, those objectives. And if they don't, then we sit down and have a conversation about why. And maybe it's not setting objectives every quarter or every 6 months, but setting monthly ones, and then seeing how people are working towards them. And if you set me 4 objectives and I do them within 4 days, not 14 days, well, you shouldn't really care how long it's taken me, as long as they're done well and I've reached, and there's a positive impact on the company. So I think it's a conversation that is probably going to go on for quite a while, and I'm sure we'll do part 2 in a few months' time to see where we are, and new research will pop up and new data that we can talk about.
So here's the thing, right? And I think we are still seeing some companies, exactly to your point, doing that understanding of data and trying to shape their new policies to the needs of the workforce as well. An example of that is Apple. I don't know if you know this, but earlier this year, Tim Cook came out saying that all the employees would have to come back to the office 3 days a week. Okay. And he defined 3 specific days. I think it was Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. That created a lot of backlash because people in Apple were saying, we are being productive. We are delivering on the results. Why are you forcing us return to the office? And I do understand his point of view, and I do understand where he comes from. I think, and there are a lot of studies going on about what's better: hybrid work, remote work, or going back to the office full time, and with contradictory results. Funny enough, but I think at the end of the day, and I think that's where he's coming from, is looking at the bottom line of what the business needs to achieve, and I feel like he comes from a place where if we don't have an hybrid model type of approach to our work style, let's call it work style now, we might miss creativity, we might miss the culture. And I think it also has to do with his vision to connect Apple more to their end clients. I don't know, like if you look at the hub, they are developing massive hub here in London in the Battersea area. One of the things that it will create new is the fact that you can now go to the facilities, use some of the facilities, for example, and go to a restaurant. and interact with the workforce. And I think he's trying to understand what he could do from a technology standpoint that is innovative, that is new, and use like facilities, the infrastructure, technology to make that happen, possibly. So I do understand where he comes from. But given the backlash he received, he's now being more flexible and he's now saying, okay, we'll still have two defined days per week where you'll come to the office, which is Tuesday and Thursday. But then I'll give you the option to choose what the other third day is. Okay, so just give some flexibility. He's still suffering a bit of a pushback, but I do understand this. And bottom line, and this is important that we don't forget this. It's important that we deliver on the needs of the end user, but it's also important that we deliver on the objectives of the company. And if we adapt to the user, if the company does the best they can to deliver on what this case workforce needs, you cannot forget about what the business also has to accomplish. And if there are some areas of the workforce are not aligned, that is fine. You can always try to find something else. I don't know. I was just reflecting, and here's a question to you. Right, we've seen a big shift, let's say, shift in power towards the workforce dictating what the business should do and what the leadership style needs to look like. And I think the main reason is tech companies need to retain talent. Um, Unemployment rates are still at a really low levels, historic low levels, and we obviously need, and companies obviously need these people to continue delivering value. Now that we are entering a crisis, and the hypothesis is unemployment rates will spike, do you think, what's your take on what will happen, in the next few years with this all of these macro things happening? Do you think companies will will buy some power back, and workforce will be more open to accept directives and policies even though they don't agree so much with that? Or do you think that we'll still continue to see pushback from the workforce?
So I'm just going to go back to Battersea because I'm very excited because it's completely dog friendly and you can actually go into the new Apple store that's open, I think, in January with your dog. So that's cool. And the Uniqlo store opened 2 weeks ago and you can go in with doggos. So, when it comes to Tim Cook, I think he kind of wants his workforce to come back to the new office in America. That was what, $1 billion it cost or something like horrendous like that. That was built just before COVID. No, I'm joking. I think, so great question. I think no. I think the answer is no. And I'll tell you why. Because firstly, I think that companies like Tesla, if they have directives that say you have to work from the office for 40 hours a week and then you can work the rest from home, they're closing themselves to a lot of talent that's out there. And companies that embrace hybrid working, they're going to be able to work with talent from all over the world. It's not just going to be in the city that they're in. It's going to be everywhere. So they'll be able to work with people that are on the other side of the planet. So they're going to have very diverse teams. And we all know how much innovation comes from diverse teams and how homogenous teams actually create products that end up not being very ethical. But I go around in circles with this ethics, don't I? So I think it will be, there will be hard times. And even if there is a little bit of a spike in that people are like, okay, I need a job, I'm going to go back to the office because I just need a job, I think it's going to be short-lived because one day we will come out of this recession and then there'll just be, again, what was it called? The Great Resignation, was it? We'll have a Great Resignation 2 or something like that. I think companies need to be open. If they want to create amazing products for users, they need to have diverse teams. They need to be open to that diversity. And this allows us that because it allows us to work with everyone, anywhere. And yeah, closing yourself off to that talent is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if during crisis, companies try to arm wrestle their way into forcing employees into the office, for example, or to some other policies that they wouldn't do otherwise in a normal situation. Even though we might see some of the employees accepting that because they are afraid of might happen if they lose the job.
Or they really want to work at that company, because like working for Tesla or Apple is in some people's minds like the pinnacle. So they might be like, okay, I'm going to go there because I'll work at Tesla, but then they'll work a few years and then bugger off somewhere where.
I think so. But exactly, as we come out of the crisis, I think the pendulum of power will shift back to the workforce. Because now it will become easier. Markets will open, money will flow in back into the market. I don't know. It falls down, I think, and as a conclusive note for me at least, I think it falls down to, if we compare to other areas such as product development, how do you develop product, waterfall versus agile. The reason why it shifted is also was to follow the need to accompany the development um, at a macro level, right? So you had more technology, you had competitors putting products out in the market quicker. How would you adapt to that? It's not like you wanted to do out of your goodwill. It's because the bottom line was, if I don't follow this agile trend of short releases, understanding the client and reprioritize my backlog in accordance with what the users are telling me, I will lose eventually a competitor advantage. And I think this is also something that especially tech companies need to understand. If you lose, and especially the ones like Google, Apple, Tesla, you really need the creme de la creme. Otherwise, a small deviation of quality will mean that your competitor will have the upper hand in the market. So I think this is a key area that I think needs to be explored, perhaps from a design perspective, even more. But always bearing in mind the metrics that are important. And the metrics that are important are the ones that deliver value across the board, across the different areas of your organization. But definitely that's design-led approach to delivering the best outcomes for the employees at the end of the day will deliver the best outcomes for the company too.
Absolutely. I think it's all about designing the right organization.
100%. And I think that's a good note for us to leave the episode on, Sam. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, as I say, we can always do part 2 if we get more data in and more articles or stuff going.
Sounds like a good idea. Perhaps we can have a guest coming in to talk about leadership. That would be
a good leader, or a bad leader.
Leave in the comment area below if you'd like us to invite someone to talk about leadership, and what would you like us to explore more about leadership. Maybe one for you guys to tell us. Cool. So Sam, now that we are just closing in the episode, where can our vast legion of listeners, followers find us?
So we're on Instagram at design.wakeup. You can find us on Twitter at design_wakeup and on LinkedIn as well. We also have a website where in a few days we will publish an article that goes together with this amazing podcast episode, where you will get all the resources that we've talked about as well. And you can find us at designwakeup.com.
Cool. And we will be launching our community next year. We'll probably start with virtual meetups, so keep an eye out on what we'll be releasing in the next few weeks, and we hope you join us in our community too. And I think that is it, Sam. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I really look forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Marco.
Thank you, Sam. Bye.